Hello, my name is Eugene Astapov, and I am the RBC Associate Composer Conductor of Esprit Orchestra. I would like to welcome our online audiences to another episode of our interactive series featuring and concentrating on some of the most accomplished composers in Canada. And so today with me, I have one such incredibly gifted composer, Julia Mermelstein, who has been commissioned by Esprit Orchestra for a future premiere. And we are here to discuss her music and her inspiration and talk about her influences. So, hello, Julia. It is very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And I just would like to dive into our conversation and talk about the piece that I was particularly impressed by, and the piece that has been scheduled for performance actually by Esprit. That piece is called In Turn. I have to say that I really enjoyed the massive open soundscape that you have there, and it makes me think almost of a giant body of water,
Hmm.
perhaps oceans. And I know that's not what your program note talked about, but just speaking about your background, I know you're from Halifax. Perhaps that geographical area influences the sound world that you work with. Do you think that's something that's true?
Yeah, that piece in particular, I was really inspired by just spaces in nature in general, and this idea of how when an environment is disturbed in some way, it like naturally tries to resolve itself over time. And that can definitely relate to the idea of water and currents and that kind of like changing and fluctuating um,
Right.
movements within water. So it definitely is related to that for sure.
Right. And what what inspires you as a composer?
I'm really inspired by Buddhist philosophy and psychology. I actually grew up in a Buddhist family, and
Oh,
so
wow.
concepts about dealing with the mind and exploring
Right.
like human consciousness has always like really been interesting to me and has kind of stuck
Mm.
with me since growing up.
Wow,
Um,
that's very interesting.
yeah, and like so some other like non musical influences would definitely be dance. I'm
Right.
really interested in collaborating with choreographers and even incorporating movement into my own pieces.
Yeah. So as I was studying your music, I noticed that you had quite a few of these dance collaborations, and I was also wondering if when you compose music that's not intended to be choreographed, do you actually perhaps think about music dance movement translating into the music that you are writing?
Oh, definitely. Like sometimes while I'm composing, I actually visualize like how would a dancer actually move to this particular point in a piece, or how would they react to a certain like musical gesture.
Right.
And I even sometimes start off with a physical gesture and then kind of think of
Wow,
how would that actually translate into sound.
that's very interesting. Now, talking about the piece that you're working on currently for Esprit, you have mentioned that you had an interest in exploring the idea of memory and
Mhm.
the relationship that we have with our memory. Uh, Perhaps you could address what it is exactly you're thinking about, and as well as how you're planning to incorporate that into a musical journey, into the sound world of your piece.
Yeah. I was really drawn to the whole idea of memory and how they kind of define who we are.
Right.
They kind of they also change with us as we live our lives. And so I kind of wanted to take these ideas and translate it into the actual structure of the piece.
Mm-hmm.
So taking ideas like the dynamics of memory, like sometimes they're super blurry to us, or they're very vivid. Sometimes they're spontaneous. They kind of arise out of nowhere in our minds. And so I kind of wanted to take those dynamics and use those to kind of dictate how certain musical gestures are transforming or evolving over time, and really influencing that whole soundscape and how those layers are interacting with one another within the whole orchestra.
That's awesome. And how far along are you into composing this?
I am just over halfway there. There's definitely a lot of details that still need to be fleshed out, but I'm definitely more than halfway there, which is exciting.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Have you found that it's a little bit more difficult to compose now with the uncertainty we have around performances and recordings because of the pandemic?
Yeah, I have to say, starting this piece and some other projects that I've been working on, I think was the most difficult point to get over.
Yeah.
Of really creating that creative mindset for myself was really hard to get into.
Hmm.
But I've kind of found some new tricks to kind of overcome that, like doing a lot of meticulous like to-do lists and
Right.
really mapping out exactly what I need to do. That's
Yeah.
really like helped me get over the uncertainty of stuff. And yeah.
Just getting down to writing, I have found myself that it's quite difficult. And
Yeah.
so I admire that you have found the courage to go ahead and make your way through almost half of the piece. That's very good.
Yeah.
Um, Another piece that I was wondering about that I have found very moving that you composed, it's called Without Ground.
Hmm.
And that's a piece that explores psychological state of mind, such as qualities of vulnerability. And I really enjoy the conversation that you established between the musicians and between the various soundscapes, the various materials. And thinking about that piece, do you think it served as a roadmap for ideas that you're exploring right now, dealing with memory and the state of mind?
Yeah, they're definitely related. Like that piece was really the starting point for me dealing with very delicate textures
Hmm.
and very specific timbral qualities between the cello and flute and percussion.
Hmm.
And that kind of was like a starting point for me to explore a lot of those types of sound qualities within, say, like this piece with a larger ensemble, and figuring out ways that those delicate sounds could translate to like this bigger sound world that you can create. But the whole idea of vulnerability, that's definitely very much tied to our memories. They're
Right.
very unstable in a sense. And so there's kind of this uncertainty with how we relate to them, how we even try and remember certain things. It can be super blurry when we try and think of a certain memory that maybe uh, has changed and we don't
Yeah.
even know it. And so there's kind of this unstable state to that. And I was exploring that kind of tension within Without Ground. And I think that definitely will translate into this new piece.
do you often start with an idea like this about memory, about state of mind? Uh, would you sometimes start composing a piece with just harmony, or like chord, or rhythmic figure, or do you think about the actual program and the substance of the work first? Does it ever come after you've composed the piece?
Rarely, I have to say. I definitely start with a particular idea. Sometimes, a lot of the times it's non-musical. Sometimes it's like inspired by a painting or poetry. But I definitely get a lot of comfort in having a very clear non-musical vision for the piece that then kind of brings me to a different kind of musical place for every piece that I'm working on.
Right. What kind of paintings are you inspired by?
Um, I'm really interested in more abstract paintings. Like I composed this piece for two marimbas and woodblock and sandpaper and electronics, and that piece was inspired by a Spanish abstract painter. Um, I can't recall the name right now. I'm really bad at remembering names, but I actually saw that at the AGO at in one of their exhibitions. But I'm really drawn to very textural, like layered paint on canvas, and I just find that so captivating to look at and continually find like more details within the paint. I just find that super fascinating.
I can definitely hear that in your music,
Mm.
the multiple layers and the way it builds, the way the material builds on top of one another and interacts within the musical fabric. What about composers? What kind of composers are you influenced by? I must say that in your piece in turn, uh, I could hear some Icelandic influences. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow I have heard the ocean and ice in your music, which is very moving, I must say. Perhaps Daniel Bjarnason.
Yeah, I definitely like his music. I'd say the Icelandic composer that I'm most inspired by would be Anna Thorsvaldsdottir. I think I pronounced that right. Yeah, I'm really moved by her kinds of soundscapes that she creates.
Yeah,
Another major composer that's really influenced my work has been Hans Abrahamsson,
yeah. I actually
another
was thinking about them.
Scandinavian composer. Yeah, yeah. Like his piece, Schnee, was totally mind blowing for me
Yeah,
when I first heard that. Um, but I'm also really inspired by more like popular music, electronic, rock, um, artists like Laurel Halo, James Blake, um,
yeah,
Deerhoof, Land of Talk. Like I really love immersing myself in lots of different styles of music,
right.
even if some of those pop influences aren't directly translated into my sound worlds that I'm creating. I still really respect and love that
Yeah,
type of music.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Julia, it has been very nice to get to know you and to hear about what you're working on, and to find out more about the piece that we will be getting at Esprit. We're very excited for that, and we are especially excited to be able to perform it as soon as we can,
Yeah.
as we all are. And I really hope to speak to you again and to see the score as soon as it's ready.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Eugene. This was really, really nice.
Thank you, Julia,
Yeah.
and we'll speak soon. Good luck.
Thank you.